So the first question I had was how to add a thread to buttons. So Rene was wondering, and it's really a good observation, that very often when you get buttons in scrapbooking, those buttons have just holes and there's no thread. You can create thread, or you can add a little bow or ribbon. I've seen some things like that. You can have a little knot that will kind of hide the area. So that is fine. So let's say that I'm starting with this button. First, I'm going to colorize it just because it would look better if it was colorized. Now I'm going to use the other hue, saturation, and lightness. Okay, I think a nice blue button will work. So I want to add some thread, and I can create thread. There are different ways. I can use a picture tube of a rope and make it very small. So what I'm going to do here, I'll just duplicate this image so I don't work on the original. Let's close it. And I'm going to enlarge the canvas simply so I can have enough room and be able to compare the dimensions. So let's make it 1,000 by 1,000. Okay. If I was to create my thread on a separate image, sometimes I might have a different zoom level, so it can be a little misleading. So I have my button here. I can use a picture tube. Has to load a bit. So I have here a rope tube, and I'll just work on a separate layer. This is set to 20% as the scale, and that could be an interesting size for my thread. So I could, let's zoom in. I could create lines of strings like that. I can make another one in the middle. Oops. So that can already be a simple way to add a thread. Depending on the color, you can try to colorize this. It would work. You can make it also in grayscale and then colorize it to match the project, because sometimes you might want to have gray thread, sometimes you might want to have blue thread or red or yellow, whichever color you want. So this is one very quick way to do it. But I'm going to show you another way, and that's going to be creating the thread from scratch. And you can also reuse it for other buttons later. So I will start with my paintbrush tool, and I'll use gray. And the reason I use gray is simply so that I can colorize it later. I know I will not want it gray all the time, but if I choose a color, blue, red, or yellow, it might not match the next one. So I'm going to start with 10 pixels in size, and the shape is going to be the round shape. The hardness, I'm just going to go with 95. So almost 100, but I try to avoid 100. The step at 1. So I'm simply going to make a line. So clicking on one holding the shift key, I make a straight line. So I'll zoom out, and so you can see that I'm not going to go all the way, because at this point I'm going to add some noise. So I'll go to adjust, add remove noise, add noise. I'm going to go around 30% monochrome, so you can see that texture here. And I'll add a bevel. So effects, 3D effects, inner bevel. I make a small bevel, not much, so don't go very deep. You just want to have something visible, so it's going to be a little lighter on top and a little darker at the bottom. Smoothness, you want it smooth enough that it will not give a sharp point. So around 30% will probably be good. So this is going to be the starting point. Now, I want to stretch this using my pick tool, set to scale. I want to stretch it out both ways. So you'll see now that the noise is going to be kind of stretched also, giving a little bit of a look of thread. So let's zoom in so you can see a bit. You see that effect here. Now, you might not want to have a single thread. You might want to have 2 or 3. So I'm going to use again the pick tool and make it even thinner. And I will right click on the layers palette, duplicate it, and I'll move it down. But I'll move it and offset it. So otherwise, I'm going to have just like, it looks like copy paste. We want to avoid that, even if we did copy paste. So I'm offsetting it a bit and overlapping a tiny bit. I'll duplicate it again. Again, doing that. Little offset, and I can go with 4. The number of copies you will have will depend probably on your button, but also you can try to create this as a base, and depending on the button you might decide I'm going to use only 3, or I'm going to use 2, or I'm going to use 5. So these are, let's say, the 4 I'm going to use. I have my button here. I'll just make a selection, just a rectangle selection, a bit longer or a lot longer than what I need. Once it's selected, I can go to copy merge. So that's here you have copy merge. So what it's going to do is copy a merged version of what is selected. So you don't have to merge your threads. Oh, actually, I'm going to do something else first. To make it even more uneven, I'm going to go with the warp brush, set to noise. And for each row, I'm just going to run a little bit of a noise effect. Change the row, make uneven. I should have done that before making the selection. I don't think it was doing much. So let's do it again. Making sure I have no selection. Oh yeah, I can see. It's moving a little bit my thread. Change the layer, it will ask me to apply it. So I give some noise, apply it, change, noise, apply, change, noise, apply. You can see now, if you go, how it is a little uneven. And if the unevenness makes too much of a gap, you can always move your threads together a little bit more. You can see how it can be more realistic. Okay, so let's go back to the selection that I was doing. Making a selection here. I will go to copy merge. Actually, there is also a shortcut, which is Control Shift C. And then you paste as a new layer. Where is it? Okay, it's not cooperating. So I have my selection, copy merge. Because the shortcut's not working. Sometimes they do that. There. So I pasted my thread, and using my pick tool, I'm going to rotate it to match the holes. At least the angle. Okay. If you want to add a little bit of sharpening, you can do that. But here we are going to use again the warp brush. But this time we want to contract. So I'm going to go with a size a little bit smaller, close to the size of my hole. And I'm going to shrink a little bit. See here? And I'm going to shrink on the other hole too. And I have to apply. And now I can make a selection with my freehand selection tool. And I'll select around here and the outside of my thread. So this is the part that I don't need. Or what I can do is also promote it to a separate layer and have it underneath if you want your thread to show underneath. That's an option. Now I will hold the shift key to make the similar selection on the other side. So I have those two areas that I can now hit the delete key. There. And I can deselect. So I can see that I should have had maybe another thread underneath there. Really, I can also duplicate and make a copy that's going to be underneath, making it, oops, tiny bit smaller. You can see how it kind of fills in. So let's merge those two together. And I can also, I don't have to, it depends on how far you cut. You can use again the warp brush using the push mode, and you can push a little bit inward. That kind of curves it, at least it gives the look there. And now you want to add some shading. So with the freehand selection tool, I'm going to select this area. Go to selection, modify feather. I'm going to feather maybe I'll go with 10. It all depends on the size of your button or the thread. And I'm going to adjust brightness, contrast, brightness, contrast. And I'll just increase the brightness a little bit because my light source is on the top left. And I can right click and move my selection to the other side. Go to adjust, brightness, contrast, and now go lower. There. And I can also add some shadows under effects, 3D effects, drop shadow. And here I want to have that shadow on a new layer because I will want to remove the shadow here because it's not really applied on the button. So for that, I'll go back now to the button layer with the magic wand. I can select the opacity, tolerance, and I uncheck the contiguous. Okay, so everything that is not blue in this case, that includes the holes. I'll go back to the layer with the shadows and hit the delete key. There. There. So this is how you can get some thread. And if you have 4 holes, you will repeat the same process on the other side. Very simple. So these threads here, what you can do is, since I have done everything on my button layer, I can duplicate this and make a selection here, image, crop to selection, and I can just add more and just keep this with all the layers, so I can later just come back and say, oh, I want to have, a little bit of thread. Maybe I want to have more, maybe I want to have fewer. And I can always get a different section all the time. So it gives something different. And of course, I will then colorize. So if I had my thread here, which is there, I can go and adjust hue and saturation, lightness, and maybe I'll do a lighter blue, or I can change the color and have something yellow instead. And everything like that is going to be custom, and you are going to be able to have thread that's going to be different all the time. Of course, if you want, you can keep this and save it as a PNG and reuse it. But be careful because the next button might not have the exact same angle, and every time you will rotate, you will lose a little bit of resolution. So it might be a good idea to just restart always with the basic. So this is kind of a long way to go, but definitely a way to create something that's going to be unique and custom too. Hey there! I hope you found this information helpful. If you're curious to dive deeper and explore more about PaintShop Pro, we've got a wealth of resources waiting for you in our membership area. There, you'll find in-depth classes, workshops, Q&A sessions, and much more to help you enhance your PaintShop Pro and digital scrapbooking skills. Feel free to check it out. The link is in the video description below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the campus!